Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Dear students, I welcome you to the module of disaster management. Today we'll discuss disaster management and the role of community medicine or public health in disaster management. Um, to begin with, whenever there is a disaster, there is disruption of what you call health and health services in that community. So with that, human populations are vulnerable to diseases and are vulnerable to the loss of well-being, both mental, physical, social, etc. So as we have already discussed, that community medicine pays special emphasis towards vulnerable stratas. So and as we are involved in health management, it is also of particular interest that disasters always call for special kind of response, special kind of health planning and health management to prevent loss of life, loss of health. So begin with, a disaster can be defined as any occurrence that cause damage, ecological disruption, loss of human life, or deterioration of health and health services on a scale sufficient to warrant an extraordinary response outside the affected community or area. A disaster can be defined as occurrence of either natural or man-made that causes human suffering and creates human needs that victims cannot alleviate without assistance. Now, when and where it occurs, anytime and anywhere, not confined to any part of the world, some disasters can be predicted, whereas some cannot be predicted. Warfare is a special category because it is well planned and damages intended goal of action. Now, factors affecting disasters are host factors, age. For example, children and women and children are at more risk of getting affected. Immunization status, if they are well immunized, because settlements that occur are not are overcrowded and they do not have good facilities of hygienic food and water. So in that case, if vaccination status or immunization status of that community is good enough, the spread of the diseases will be contained. Degree of mobility, how much they have traveled, how much migration has occurred, and the emotional stability, these are all factors that affect, these are host factors that affect response to the disaster. And then environmental factors are physical factors, chemical factors, biological factors, social factors, and psychological factors. Now, effects of disasters are population displacement, injury or death, risk of epidemic of diseases, damage to infrastructure, psychological problems, food shortage, socioeconomic losses, and shortage of drug and medical supplies. Now, once you have known all the effects of the disasters, you have to plan your health services and your social services accordingly. You have to take care of all the effects that a disaster causes so that you can help the community come out of the effects of disaster and they can be rehabilitated well. Now, types of disasters can be broadly divided into natural causes, natural disasters, or man-made disasters. Now, natural disasters are earthquakes, landslides, volcanic eruptions, floods, and cyclones, while man-made disasters are stampedes, as you saw in during Hajj, fires, as you saw in Australia recently, industrial accidents, transport accidents. You come to know very often that a railway track has been destroyed by some what you call terrorist activity, and the train compartments, they fell upon those damaged lines, thus causing human losses. Or you further listen in news that certain buses have collided on motorway and that much of the people have died and that many has injured. Nuclear explosions, radiations, wars, deliberate attacks may also be put in this category. Now, these pictures show, the first picture is showing landslide, how the land, it usually occurs in mountainous areas, and a piece of mountain is what you call displaced, and it fell, slides, and it falls upon the lower regions, and if those regions are populated of the, or there is some transport road over there, it will be destroyed. And the next pic, this one, it shows volcanic eruptions, then shows cyclone. Cyclone is a kind of, tufan, samandari tufan, and earthquake that is being shown over there. Then war, terrorism, floods, oil spillage, these are all kinds of disasters. Now, severity of impact. The severity of the impact depends upon many factors: predictability, types of, some of the disasters such as cyclones, floods can be predicted, and the degree of preparedness will be high. The type of disasters: in earthquakes, the mortality is high because the people get crushed below the falling objects and collapsed buildings. Density and population distribution, opportunity of warning, and condition of environment. These all factors, they affect the severity of impact of disaster on human populations. If they can be predicted, impact will be lesser. If the disaster is something that cannot be predicted, for example earthquake that occurs without any prediction, so and the effect are very rapid, for example buildings get crushed, etc., etc., so the impact will be severe. Density and population distribution: if that in that area the population is dense and they are distributed, dense distributions of population are present over there, then the impact will be high. And if you have opportunity of warning, for example in floods, for example from water moves from highland towards lower lands, so if flood formation occurs in higher lands and the warning is given to those who are living in lower lands, they can vacate that area and human lives can be prevented. And conditions of the environment, of course, it affects a lot. Now this is beyond your scope. Morbidity and mortality: earthquakes, unpredicted, people get crushed, they cannot escape, and if it occurs in the night, the people may have fractured pelvis, thorax, spines, etc. Floods, for example collapsed dams or tidal waves. Droughts, protein calorie malnutrition occur, vitamin deficiency, particularly vitamin A, leading to xerophthalmia and blindness. Even dehydration and diarrhea may occur. Now, principles of disaster management are comprehensive. Disaster managers consider and take into account all hazards, all phases, and all impacts relevant to the disasters. Progressive: anticipate future disasters and take preventive and preparatory measures. This is known as disaster mitigation. Risk driven: use sound risk management principle, hazard identification, risk analysis, and impact analysis in assigning priorities and resources. Integrated: ensure unity of efforts from all level of government and all elements of community. Now, one, you must ensure that or take into account that disaster management is not the responsibility of health managers. To manage a disaster, you need an integrated approach from all types of department that are involved in managing that area. You need municipal work, you need police, you need rangers, you need rescue workers, you need volunteers, you need doctors, you need nurses, you need health managers. So disaster management is a full-blown science and specialty, and it involves all cadres of society. They should be collaborative, create and sustain broad and sincere relationships among individuals and organizations, coordinated, flexible, and professional. Now, phases of disaster management are disaster response, disaster rehabilitation, and disaster reconstruction. This is recovery phase after disaster. And then you have another two steps, which is disaster mitigation and disaster preparedness. That is reduction phase before a disaster. What is disaster mitigation? We will discuss it in coming slides. Disaster mitigation means that we should take steps to prevent hazards from occurring if disaster occurs. For example, those areas which are prone of earthquakes, the building materials should be such, the use of iron and steel in the infrastructure of the buildings of those areas should be there, so that if earthquakes occur, the buildings should not get destroyed and should not fall down. So this for example is an example of disaster mitigation. And for disaster preparedness, you should be prepared. You should have all elements on board, that if disaster occur, what and how you will manage it, what will you do. That should be very well thought of, very well coordinated, collaborative, as we have, and comprehensive, as we have discussed in previous slides. Now we have the cycle. Disaster Once disaster occurs, then we have disaster response and disaster recovery, and then you go for disaster mitigation and disaster preparation. Now, the impact and response. Greatest need for emergency care is in the first few hours after the impact. The management of mass casualties are divided into search and rescue, first aid, field care, triage, tagging, and identification. This is the first and the foremost response you will provide on ground once the disaster occurs, and that means that should be done within first few hours. Now, for search and rescue, team should be organized and work as one. Even with a good team, the search may be a small fraction in major disasters. The immediate help is usually obtained from the uninjured. Field care, the injured people are brought to the nearest healthcare immediately by available means of transport, and people converge into the health facilities. The hospitals must go ready to deal with mass input of injured, with new priorities for bed and availability in surgical services. Provision for food shelter should be done. A center to respond for the inquiries from patient relatives and friends. Priority is given to the victim identification and adequate mortuary space. Triage, it consists of rapidly classifying the injured on the basis of severity of their injuries and their likelihood of survival, with prompt medical intervention. The principle of first come first serve is not followed. High priority is given to those who immediate or long-term prognosis can be changed dramatically with simple intensive care. It is the only approach that can provide maximum benefit to the large populations in a major disaster. Color coding is very important. Now, internationally accepted 4 color coding systems are red, yellow, green, and black. Red is high priority treatment or transfer, yellow is medium priority, green is ambulatory patients, while black is dead or moribund patients. Triage should be carried out at the site of disaster. Local health workers should be taught the principle of triage as a part of disaster training. People with minor injuries should be treated in their homes to avoid social dislocation and drain resources which are needed by severely injured persons. All persons should be tagged with details, name, age, place of origin, triage, and initial diagnosis and treatment. Now, but this is very important because in smaller localities, you guys will be the health managers. For example, you are working in a basic healthcare unit and you happen to know that some disaster has occurred. For example, an aeroplane falls on a village. So a disaster has happened there. 800 passengers were inside the plane, while the community people are also involved. So what will you do? The first and the foremost thing is you will go over there and you will teach people triage: red, yellow, green, black. Those who are red should be first sent to the healthcare facility so that the intensive care can be started and the lives can be saved. And likewise, you will treat patients after good triage. And color coding helps a lot. Identification of dead. Dead people care is most important disaster management because they impede the efficiency of rescue activities. Care of dead, proper respect, removal of dead from the scene, shifting to the mortuary, identification, reception of bereaved relatives. Cadavers must be removed from the water sources as they may cause outbreak of gastroenteritis or food poisoning. The health hazard from the cadavers are the outbreaks of cholera, typhoid, leptospirosis, anthrax, and plague. Now, disaster relief, response and rehabilitation. Disaster management cycle: disaster impact, response, reconstruction, and mitigation and preparedness. This is the disaster management cycle. Relief phase: the relief phase begins with when assistance from outside area starts reaching the disaster site. The relief supplies are determined by two factors: the type of disaster and the availability of local supplies. Important needs are critical health supply and casualties, food, blanket, clothing, shelter, sanitary, engineering, measures to prevent outbreak of communicable diseases, donations, transportation, storage and distribution of food, medicines and vitamins. The four distinct components in relief phase are acquisition of supplies, transportation, storage and distribution. Now, disaster response involves epidemiological surveillance, nutrition, vaccination. Now, surveillance early warning system: rapid detection of cases of epidemic prone diseases is essential to ensure rapid control. A surveillance early warning system should be quickly established to detect outbreaks, monitor priority endemic diseases. For example, a flood has occurred and there is an internally displaced population for example 100 kilometers away. Now that population has been made to live in shelters for a while. Now those doctors or health workers who are working in those communities, in those shelters, they must rapidly notify if they see cases of, for example, cholera, because if one or two cases of cholera or gastro has been identified, that means that will spread in the community very rapidly. So preventive health strategies can be applied. If a patient sees a case of measles over there, he can identify the authorities, and health intervention in the form of mass measles vaccination can be done to prevent the spread of the disease. Same is the case with dengue fever. If one finds that dengue fever cases have started, public health or preventive health strategies or interventions can occur. Mass environmental spraying to destroy mosquito and its breeding sites can be done to further prevent the spread of dengue fever. Priority diseases to be included in the surveillance system. In some situations, the threats may include rare diseases such as viral hemorrhagic fevers, plague, or tularemia. Communicable diseases. The potential risk of communicable diseases are influenced by 6 types of adverse changes. These are changes in pre-existent level of disease, ecological changes, population, displacement population, density disruption, public utilities, and interruption of basic public health services. Now, changes in pre-existent level of disease. Usually the risk of communicable disease in a community is affected by disaster is proportional to the endemic level. There is generally no risk of a given disease when the organism causes it is not present beforehand. Relief workers can conceivably introduce communicable diseases into areas affected by the disaster. Now, ecological changes caused by the disaster, natural disasters, particularly droughts, floods, hurricanes, frequently produce ecological changes in the environment which can increase or reduce the risk of communicable diseases. For example, if drought occurs, that means rain has not occurred for a while, so dengue fever or mosquito-borne diseases might reduce, and vector-borne and waterborne diseases are generally more significantly affected. And if flood has occurred, then dengue fever might increase. Population displacement, movement of populations away from the areas affected by a disaster can affect the relative risk from the communicable diseases. If the population moves nearby the existing facilities some distance, the chances increase that the displaced population will encounter diseases not prevalent in their own community to which they are less susceptible. Population density, because of the destruction of houses, natural disaster almost invariably contribute to the increased population density, and the survivors of severe disaster seek shelter, food and water in less affected areas and when the damage is less severe. Crowding may also occur in public health places like schools and churches. Now, disruption of public utilities occurs. Electricity, water, sewage disposal, other public utilities may be interrupted after disaster management. Insufficient water or washing hands and bathing also promotes the spread of disease transmitted by contact. Interruption of basic public health services. The interruption of basic public health services like vaccination, ambulatory treatment of tuberculosis, and programs for the control of malaria and vectors are frequent after disaster in a developing country. The risk of transmission increases proportionally to the extent and duration of the disruption. Now, principles of preventing and controlling communicable diseases: implement as soon as possible all public health measures to reduce risk of disease transmission. Organize a reliable reporting system to identify outbreaks, initiate suitable control measures, investigate all reports of disease outbreaks immediately. Preventive measures in communicable diseases are ensure safe water, sanitation, primary health care services. The immediate impact of communicable diseases can be mitigated with following interventions: ensure early diagnosis and treatment of diarrheal diseases, acute respiratory infections and malaria. Ensure availability of drugs included in Interagency Emergency Health Kit. Now, vaccination. Vaccination has a paramount role in preventing deterioration of health in the times of disaster. Typhoid and cholera vaccine, tetanus, measles and hepatitis A vaccine. Nutrition is very important. Disaster affects nutrition status of population by affecting one or more components of food chain. Infants, children, pregnant women, nursing mothers, and sick persons are most commonly affected ones. The steps for ensuring food relief programs will be assessing food supplies after a disaster, gauging the nutritional needs of affected population, calculating daily food rations and need for the large population, monitor the nutritional status of affected people. Relief versus rehabilitation. अब इनमें क्या फ़र्क है? Relief and rehabilitations come immediately after the disaster. The basic difference between them is that relief relates to the immediate days and weeks after the disaster when attempts are made to provide basic needs to the victim. Rehabilitation relates to the work undertaken in the following weeks and months for the restoration of basic services to enable population to return to normalcy. Rehabilitation phase starts from the moment disaster strikes and ends with the restoration of normality. And it ends with restoration of normality, for example, water supply, food supply, basic sanitation and hygiene and vector control. Water supply. Survey all public water supplies to be made. Priority of ensuring water qualities by chlorination. Increase the residual chlorine level to about 0.2 to 0.5 milligram per liter. Existing A new water resource requires the following: restrict access to the people and animals, ensure excreta disposal at a safe distance from water source, prohibit water washing methods, upgrade wells to ensure they are not contaminated, estimate maximum yield of the wells in case of emergency. Water has to be trucked to the disaster site or camps. Food supply. Poor hygiene is the major cause of foodborne disasters in disaster areas, whereas feeding programs are used. Kitchen sanitation is of utmost importance. Personal hygiene is of utmost sanitation is of utmost importance. Personal hygiene should be monitored in individuals involved in food preparation. Basic sanitation and hygiene. Many communicable diseases spread through fecal contamination of drinking water and food. Hence, every effort should be made to ensure sanitary disposal of excreta. Emergency toilet facilities should be made available wherever they are destroyed. Washing, cleaning, and bathing facilities should be provided to the displaced persons. Vector control is very important. Of special concern are dengue fever, malaria, leptospirosis, rat bite fever, plague, etc. Now, disaster mitigation and preparedness. What is disaster mitigation? Disaster mitigation is the key to national preparedness. This includes an assessment of possible risk to the personal and family health and to the personal property. For instance, in floodplain, homeowners might not be aware of a property being exposed to hazard until trouble strikes. Specialists can be hired to conduct risk identification and assessment surveys. What is mitigation? It helps you find the best solution to safeguard you, your home, and your community from the effect of disaster. Mitigation involves structural and non-structural measures taken to limit the impact of disaster. Structural mitigations are actions that change the characteristic of a building or its surrounding. Examples include shelters, window shutters, clearing forest and around house. Non-structural mitigation on personal level mainly takes the form of insurance or simply moving a house to a safer area. Now, disaster preparedness is a program of long-term development activities whose goals are to strengthen the overall capacity and capability of a country to manage